Hello, wonderful ladies. If anyone is joining live, welcome. Apologies, my laptop was having a little bit of a think before connecting. Welcome to tonight. We, as usual, will start with just very gentle settling in. So, especially sometimes when we are, even if you have plans for joining live, or sometimes we switch on a meditation, but then it takes us a moment to settle. So take that time. I invite you to take any movements before focusing on the breath. So whether it's stretching through shoulders, fingers, making sure that you have support underneath you, whether you're lying down, if you're sitting on a chair, then making sure that you have that back support. If you're sitting on the floor, then have a cushion to lift your hips and maybe even leaning against the wall or furniture. And today I also invite you to imagine the gentle stacking of your joints and the points of the body, so kind of from the bottom towards the top. So whether you're sitting or lying down, just imagine and maybe press gently through the feet. And even if you're lying down, you might not necessarily feel that alignment, but just really release all the weight of the weight of the body through the feet. And then maybe you can imagine that line gently going perhaps through the sole of the foot, through the heel, through the ankle, through the knee. So maybe feeling that connection of the lower part of the leg, and then maybe feeling that connection, so from the knee aligned with the hip. And they don't need to be in a particular kind of one line, but just feeling that connection. And then maybe feeling the hips. Notice if, especially if we're sitting or even lying down, sometimes we might roll on one side. You just notice and maybe adjust it so that you are equal between the two sides. More or less. Equal is a little bit of a word that doesn't have to be, so whatever feels right for you. So feel the whole lower body. And allow that maybe the weight of the torso to be supported by the lower body, and then just gently notice how the upper body feels towards lower body. Of course, if you're lying down, then maybe just allow both the shoulder points, shoulder blades relax into the bed, or if you're lying on the mat. If you're seated, then I just invite you to imagine that the space of the shoulder blades versus the hips, they don't have to be exactly in the same stacking order. However, maybe you can notice if perhaps the shoulders are a little bit too much forward, or the hips a little bit too forward. So just make any adjustments to imagine that you are almost in a, not necessarily a straight line, but the shoulders and hips stacked, and then obviously we have our curves of the spine. And then relax the whole length of the spine, whether you are sitting up, whether you are lying down. And then feeling that alignment now of the torso and the lower body, I just invite you to maybe notice where the head is right now. So maybe sometimes if you have tilt towards one side or the other, so without really overthinking it, but just notice. So we just want to feel that sense of unity through the whole body right now. So rather than right versus left or front versus back, up versus down, it's just all together. Imagine that it's like if you had one of those, I guess, Lego blocks, but something building up together, and just bringing it. It doesn't have to be a particular shape, but just being connected. And then notice how it feels right now to be connected with your body. And that beautiful connection and presence, in a way, can come in two parts. So the first two principles in yoga we have non-harm, but non-harm can also be expressed through compassion. So let's just say compassion, and the second one is honesty. And how we can apply it right now in our gentle somatic experience and meditation, we can look at it this way. Your compassion is to look after yourself, to make sure that you are comfortable, safe, secure. And your honesty comes from that self-inquiry. Is there anything that you need to do right now? Is that the best position that would suit you? So honesty and compassion working together in that body alignment. And honesty and compassion, in a way, in even this meditation, become more of a force towards thriving. Because I truly believe that compassion is one of the biggest resources that is required for us to be able to return to that state of relaxing, of peace, of comfort. So anytime throughout the practice, whenever you feel that the body is communicating to you, asking for some gentle adjustment, you are practicing compassion and you're building compassion through it. So for that gentle observation of the body, and at any point I invite you to respond to what speaks up in the body. If it feels comfortable, just want like to gently guide your attention towards your breath. Of course, everything that I suggest or offer is optional, but if it feels comfortable, if you would like to either bring the hands on the area, one on the heart and one around the abdomen area, around the stomach, or you can imagine that your hands are in those areas or anywhere in particular, but just bring into that sense of the full breath where we are breathing in into the full expanded belly. And you might also feel the rising of the chest. And as you exhale, letting go. And one of the reasons that I guide your awareness towards those areas is that very often when we speak about some strong emotions that overwhelm us, if I speak to my clients, if I bring attention towards them, if I look at myself as well, a lot of the time we feel them around the chest area and around the stomach area. So tonight's practice, I would like to invite you towards acknowledging and recognizing that this is one of the instruments to build our compassion and kindness towards ourselves, by breathing in into those areas and allowing yourself to soften and let go. So just noticing the flow of the breath. Inhale, soft belly, expansion, rising of the chest. And exhale, letting everything out that doesn't serve. And I invite you to imagine that without really applying any particular situations, you do not need to think. You don't need to think right now what is in particular you would like to let go. Just invite you to trust into that process of building more compassion with that breath in, and softly allowing for anything that needs to stay, stay. Anything that might need to go, can go. This is why breath is so powerful in the emotional circumstances. Just taking those deep breaths. Sometimes it's not applicable to have our hands on the heart or the belly if other people are around, but you can just imagine holding that space with your breath. If there is anything in particular right now comes up, any situation, maybe you might sense or even see an image of yourself in a particular situation where you needed that self-compassion from yourself. So if anything like this comes up, I invite you to embrace it. Maybe you can imagine that version of you also placing their hands in the position that you have, starting to watch and observe their breath. With each breath, your ability to hold yourself in challenging times rises. Maybe it might come up again as a visual or as a sensation. How can you relate to that sense of building that compassion? Maybe it's a color that's flowing in with that breath. Maybe it's a container that gets filled up. Maybe you can feel some warmth through the body, around the heart. As you connect more and more to that compassion building up. Maybe you want to just be curious what it feels like. So each inhalation increases that amount of self-compassion within you. On an exhalation, maybe you can feel it washing all over yourself. Maybe you can feel it in any particular area. There's never any right or wrong way to experience things. It's always your way. And if it's still maybe challenging to grasp that, that's okay as well. Just like anything unfamiliar, it might take time to learn and to make it feel natural. I just invite you to be curious and observe. What does compassion mean for you? How does it feel right now? Maybe a situation comes in mind where you were kind to yourself or another person. Connect to that sensation. How did you feel in that moment? Or perhaps it's something that you're experiencing in your body right now. And I'm just going to take another 3 deep breaths where I invite you to imagine that you're taking almost like screenshots or just some sort of internal shots of that, whether it's a sensation or a visual. So if I were to say right now, compassion is, and it would be that. Maybe a word, maybe sensation, maybe an image. And then I invite you to use any gesture, whether it's physical or internal. Imagine that you store it within you, whether it's in your mind, whether it's literally somewhere within the body that you would know that this is where you can tap in. It doesn't mean that you need to completely leave it there, but you know it that it's always there, that special protected place as a reserve that you can always come back to. And as I invite you now to maybe start to bring awareness back to the whole body. Maybe as we started the class, starting from the feet and then going through that alignment or that invisible line, the ankles, the knees, the hips. So those joints stacked one on top of the other. And now torso, the shoulders, feeling the whole length of your spine, whether you're seated or lying down. And then feeling the head and the neck. And I just invite you to take maybe another 2 deep breaths and imagine that if there are some parts right now that do not quite feel connected to that sense of compassion that you have been generating, see if you can take that big breath in. Invite as much of that compassion inwards, and then as you breathe out, just fucking wash it all over. Allow it to come into every cell of the body, to be fully immersed in that sense of compassion. So you feel fully recharged with it. And of course, as always, I invite you to stay as long as you'd like. If you do have the time, stay longer in that space for yourself. Whenever you're ready, I invite you to maybe make any gesture that's gonna symbolize for you acknowledging yourself, for practicing, for being in this space. And I would like to acknowledge all of you for being here, for practicing, for looking after yourself, and for building your compassion. Thank you so much. Namaste, everyone.